Anyone who has siblings knows that sometimes they can be an absolute pain in the arse. However, siblings in horror movies are obviously a hell of a lot worse. They are in horror movies after all. I'm Tilly from What Culture Horror, and these are the 10 most messed up horror movie siblings. Number 10. KRISTI and Katie, the Paranormal Activity series. It's easy to forget now, but when Paranormal Activity first dropped into cinemas back in 2007, it was an absolute sensation. The low-key approach to storytelling with well-timed jump scares resonated with audiences, and so the sequels kept on coming. At the centre of the story for the first 3 or so movies, they admittedly blur together at some point, is Katie and KRISTI. Katie's descent into possession is chronicled in the first film, with more backstory added to the sisters as the films go on. As it turns out, Katie and KRISTI were first introduced to all things demonic in their youth, and we get to watch their creepy childhood escapades with their imaginary pal Toby. The second film in the franchise, however, reveals that it was KRISTI who ultimately put Katie in the line of possession fire, transferring the demon's attention from her own family onto Katie. Yes, it was to protect her own son, but damn, that is seriously cold. Technically, Katie is the more evil of the two, given that she kills Mika and abducts Hunter, but it wouldn't have happened if KRISTI hadn't been so bloody cruel. Number 9. Jane and Blanche Hudson. Whatever happened to baby Jane? This psychological horror from 1962 doesn't need any supernatural spookery to make it terrifying, relying solely on the depravity of desperate human beings. Jane being a prolific child actress and Blanche living in her shadow. As Jane's acting style goes out of fashion, Blanche instead becomes the celebrity sister. However, this flourishing career is halted when Blanche is in a mysterious car accident for which her drunken sister is blamed. Blanche, now wheelchair-bound and helpless, is subjected to Jane's jealousy-fueled rage. It's deeply upsetting to watch Jane treat her sister so badly, starving, beating, and humiliating her. But Blanche herself is far from innocent. In a surprise twist, it turns out that Blanche accidentally crashed the car herself and orchestrated the event to look like it was Jane's fault. By this point, Blanche is starved and severely dehydrated, essentially on her last legs due to her sister's own envy. The two are so wrapped up in hatred of the other that it led to an ambiguously nasty fate by the end of the film. Number 8. Ginger FITZGERALD, Ginger Snaps. Getting turned into a werewolf would probably make anyone a tad grumpy, but the Ginger of Ginger Snaps takes it to a whole new level. Played by horror icon Katharine Isabelle, Ginger FITZGERALD's growth into a young woman is far more ferocious than inherently feminine. Ginger and her sister Bridget, played by another scream queen Emily Perkins, are a bit on the odd side, both being fascinated by death and having a suicide pact between them. But when Ginger is chomped on by a werewolf, she gets quite a lot weirder. Growing a tail overnight is the least of her concerns when Ginger starts getting frisky with certain classmates and beating up others. Then, worst of all, she kills a neighbour's dog. Bridget is obviously horrified, but due to the intensely strong bond between the two sisters, she vows to help her savage sibling. To prove her loyalty, Bridget even infects herself with Ginger's blood and runs away from her mother to convince her sister that their pact is unbreakable. Bridget, despite being complicit in Ginger's crimes, eventually cannot fully follow through with their plan and accidentally kills her sister in an act of self-defense. Ultimately, the sisters' dark fascination with the macabre and each other leads to their downfall, with Ginger being the more feral of the two. She does murder a couple of her peers, but kidnapping one dog and killing another one? Absolutely unacceptable. Number 7. Victoria and Lily DESANGE, Mama. Sometimes characters are messed up by horrible things that happen to them, such is the case with Victoria and Lily from Andy Muschietti's Mama. Their dad goes bonkers and tries to kill them, and then they are kept under the maternal guardianship of a mysterious and terrifying spirit in the woods known only as Mama. The girls are covered in dirt and speak in snarls and clipped sentences and scuttle around like spiders, having lived alone in the woods with Mama for 5 years. They echo Reagan McNeil's backwards scrawl on the stairs, something we'd all rather forget. Brought under the care of their uncle and his girlfriend, the two girls retain their feral characteristics, snarling and snapping at their newfound family. And like creepy kids do so well, they like to draw pictures of Mummy Dearest on the walls, bent and contorted like a yoga instructor having a very bad day. Whilst older sister Victoria slowly acclimatises, poor Lily is too young to move on. She doesn't understand what Mama is and what she has done. By the end of the film, Lily is tragically unable to let her attachment to Mama go. Number 6. Michael Myers. I know what you're thinking. How on earth is someone as messed up as the boogeyman himself ranked so relatively low on this list? Well, it's a little thing called the bizarre continuity of the Halloween timeline. Even for die-hard fans of this juggernaut of a franchise, there is a lot of head-scratching involved when trying to explain the lore. As of Halloween 2, Michael was revealed to be Laurie Strode's brother, which is maintained throughout the silliness that was the Cult of Thorns story arc and the Rob Zombie remakes. It was used as a way to try and explain why Michael was so fixated on Laurie and why their lives were so entwined. However, the 2018 reboot/sequel completely retconned this and stated it was just a rumour. Still, for about 30 years or so, Michael was the very, very messed up sibling of Laurie Strode. Given how popular the film saga is, your narrator doesn't really need to go into detail as to why. Laurie herself is pretty messed up as a result of Michael and his actions. Yes, she's a badass and an icon of the horror genre, but it came at a terrible cost. She is severely traumatised, suffering from PTSD and emotionally distant from her family. She even died in the saga like 3 times. Someone please get this woman a therapist. Number 5. Thomasin, the Witch. Similarly to Lily and Victoria, Thomasin from Robert Eggers' modern classic The Witch had evil thrust upon her. Firstly, being banished from your community and sent into the wilderness isn't ideal. But then your baby brother goes missing, then the whole family begins to suspect you of witchcraft and your whole life falls apart. Really not so good. Thomasin has a chilling ambiguity to her. Was she a witch all along, or did the series of terrible events lead her down such a dark path? Anya Taylor-Joy's magnetic performance keeps the audience guessing, whilst also portraying the terror and confusion felt by the young woman. Either way, we can all agree that the nightmarish things that happened to her and her family would certainly mess us up. Nobody wants incestuous advances from their own bloody brother. Granted, her younger twin siblings could easily take the spot on this list. Their wild grins, eerie chanting, and the malicious mischief of their actions does send goosebumps down your spine. However, Thomasin does in fact submit to the devil herself and begins a life of eternal servitude to dark forces. That's pretty messed up if you ask me. Number 4. Belial Bradley, Basket Case. Frank Henenlotter's iconic exploitation film set in seedy 80s New York tells the tale of 2 brothers going on a journey of self-acceptance, love, and courage. Only the brothers go about this by going on a sort of revenge mission. You see, twins Belial and Duan were conjoined twins at birth, but were forcibly separated. Now they're after the doctors who performed the operation. Whilst Duan is pretty unhinged, it's his brother Belial who is the truly messed up sibling. Not only is his appearance haunting, but his acts of horrendous violence and sexual predation make him a deeply unsettling little fellow. Granted, he just wants a bit of love, but Belial, my friend, ripping people's faces open with your big meaty clawed hands is not the way to go about it. Couple a fantastic creature design with inspired stop-motion animation sequences and a truly bizarre sex scene in the sequel, and you've got yourself one very, very messed up sibling. Number 3. Dani and Terri Ardor, MIDSOMMAR. Yes, I know this film features on a lot of What Culture lists and a lot of my lists, but there is a reason for that. To put it frankly, it's just a bloody good horror film. What's not so good, however, is the mental state of the 2 Ardor sisters, Dani and Terri. Firstly, Terri suffers from bipolar disorder and the film opens up with her tragic suicide. This understandably messes Florence Pugh's Dani up, but it's only gonna get worse. Isolated from the world with only her dickhead boyfriend Christian and his equally douchey pals, she ends up going on a nice holiday to Sweden to observe and take part in a midsummer festival on a commune. Tripping balls, a ritualistic suicide, nightmares, and what she perceives to be Christian cheating on her send Dani tumbling over the edge. Many have regarded the final scene of her smiling eerily into the camera after sentencing Christian to death as a victory, but this is far from the case. The cult indoctrinate Dani, manipulate her whilst knowing she's vulnerable, and orchestrate events to make her murder her boyfriend, who wasn't a very good boyfriend, sure, but he certainly didn't deserve that ending. Poor Dani starts off in a bad place, but only goes downhill as the film progresses. Number 2. Charlie and Peter Graham, Hereditary. Okay, I might be asking for trouble by not only putting both of Ari Aster's films on this list, but also ranking them right next to each other. If it's any excuse, Aster just knows how to write messed up family dynamics. In his big screen debut, 2018's Hereditary shows us quite possibly one of the most messed up families in recent horror history. Caught in the middle of unstable mother Annie and emotionally closed off father Steve are the 2 children, Peter and Charlie. We know right from the get-go that Charlie is messed up, as she likes to cut the heads off of pigeons with a pair of scissors. She gets pretty physically messed up when she's decapitated earlier in the film, and we learn that a demon was actually implanted into her body by her cult-leading grandma. I would suggest going to therapy with Laurie Strode, but I don't think her head's in the right place for it. Then there's poor Peter Graham. Without knowing that his grandmother's cult is behind Charlie's death, he's racked with guilt and sees visions of Charlie haunting him everywhere. His own mum nearly killed him while she was sleepwalking and didn't even want him in the first place, and then the demon king that lived in his sister ultimately possesses him. Plus, he watches his mum get possessed and cut off her own head with piano wire. I genuinely hope Astor never has children of his own. Number 1. Lukas and Elias, Goodnight Mommy. The Grady girls from The Shining often get a mention on lists about horror families, siblings and twins, and whilst they are certainly iconic, they are ultimately victims of evil forces and aren't particularly messed up in their own right. Lukas and Elias, on the other hand, these two little fuckers are genuinely nasty. After their mother returns from having cosmetic surgery, her face is entirely bandaged, and the twins begin to suspect that the woman who has returned is not actually their mother. Right, this question's for you, audience. Do they try and call the police or seek advice from unbiased adults? If you said yes, you are incorrect. The answer is, in fact, they tie her to the bed, burn her with a magnifying glass, superglue her mouth shut, and then cut it back open with scissors. Eventually their questions go nowhere and they superglue her to the ground and set her alight. Well, they don't set her alight exactly. In a shocking twist, it's revealed that Lukas is in fact dead, and Elias has been unable to move on from his brother's death, hallucinating his presence ever since the unnamed accident. Given that it's the hallucination of Lukas who eggs Elias's torture on, the top spot on this list goes to both of these deeply messed up brothers. And that's our list. Know of any messed up horror movie siblings we missed? Let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe and swing on by our channel again if you want to catch more creepy content. I've been Tilly and this has been What Culture Horror. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you again soon. Until next time, bye bye.